The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? Let me tell you, there are some shortcuts not worth taking in life, especially if it means going through a neighbourhood where you don't like everyone else. And they know it, as Amber and Scott discuss the gates. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
This kind of felt like one of those old 80s comedies that where the main characters are always getting into hijinks and
It did not.
all these weird hijink situations, and then they just removed all of the comedy from it.
Okay. Actually,
Like here-
I can kind of see that.
Like, oh-
teenagers getting into trouble kind of a thing, but this is serious stuff and definitely not funny.
Like you go to a party and, oh, you're black, so you get to lay bars down on our track. And
Lay bars down on my track? What does that mean?
I'm sorry, that's hip language. You sing for their album.
Oh, okay. All right.
And stuff like that. It
Yeah,
was-
there was definitely nothing comedic about
Yeah,
this film.
make it very clear. It was all of the hijinks with none of the comedy.
Yeah, definitely more serious than hijinks. All right, folks, so today we are talking about The Gates. It is a suspense thriller, and it is about three friends trapped in an exclusive gated community where they see a murder. And this actually happens to be the final film that James Van Der Beek made. And
I feel bad for him. I mean, besides dying. I feel bad that this was his last film.
wow, okay. I mean, it was an interesting character. Film, I guess I want to be sensitive in the fact that obviously you and I are speaking about experiences that you and I could never possibly experience. And that's the truth with most films. But when you come at a film that really is about prejudice and racism and whatnot, it's always, I guess it's always important for me to know that I can speculate what I would do, but I can never begin to imagine what young black men in our country experience.
Oh, don't get me wrong. There's definitely that, but like the characters were just so one-dimensional. There was no layers to them whatsoever. Like, you are you, and you are you, and you are you, and that is exactly who you are, and you can predict your behavior throughout the movie based on that.
Okay. All right. So
And also, it was just very, like, things would get intense super quick in dialogue. Like, it felt awkward.
okay. Well, it's a good thing we're not a movie review show.
Yeah, but we're not, that's not our job, but you definitely get a
None
little
of this
bit
is
of
a
it.
job. If it is, I have not gotten my paychecks. So, folks, let's go ahead and dig in here. So we have these three friends, and really two of the people have one of the guys in common as a friend. The other two are just kind of friends with the one guy. So you have these three guys out, and they're out for a good time. They're going somewhere, and they get caught in a traffic jam on the highway and decide, hey, we're going to jump off the highway, and we're going to take this road to get to where we're going. And it's dark, and it's late, and they're driving along, and this road pretty much dead ends at a big gate. And
Yeah, they had to take a detour.
well, they didn't have to take a detour. They were like, instead of turning back, we're going to try and get into this gated community thinking we can get out the other side.
No, I mean, they took a detour off the highway to begin with
Oh, yeah,
because it was
Yeah.
stopped. So then you get the pleasure of running down one of those Texas farm roads. And I know you do not know that pleasure, but I have driven many of them.
Well, the character looked at the map and said, oh, let's go this way. So what would you do? I would make sure that a road actually gets me to where I'm going, opposed to ended up dead end at a gated community. Also, too, I would never think that a gated community has something you can zip through and exit out the other side. The whole point of gated communities is that they have limited points of entry to ensure the safety of the community. So for them to think, oh, we'll get in and go out the other side, was like, what?
Yeah. Though Scott getting a little twitchy for a moment. I mean, if you're going to use real places like Highland Park and Denton in there,
In Texas.
I got super twitchy when they said that they were going up to this party at Northern Texas University, because the university in Denton is the University of North Texas, not Texas Northern.
Movies and TV shows typically make up names that sound like the real names. I remember in Beverly Hills 90210, they didn't go to UCLA, they went to CULA. That's not uncommon.
Well, CULA feels like a... I don't know. My parents went to University of North Texas, and so I just kind of...
I mean, that's not terribly uncommon.
Twitchy.
I've seen that happen. Okay, well, I'm sorry.
It doesn't take much to make me twitchy.
That's true. So they're trying to figure out, how do we get into this gated community so we can go through? Okay, what would you do? I would turn around the car and I go back and I'm like, well, that didn't work out. But instead, they are trying to figure out how to get in, and a woman in a sporty red car, sloshing back some alcohol, says, "You want in here? Sure, I'll let you in."
Listen, I as you know, I am one that does trust my GPS. Like, it has gotten pretty good these days, and if my GPS is telling me to go through here, then I won't feel like there's any reason.
But is it? Is it telling them to go through there? I mean, it's a gated community on the top of a mountain, no less.
Yeah, so it would be weird for the GPS to tell you to do that. But if it did, one, I'd report the route later. But, like...
Gated communities are there to restrict who comes and goes. To think that you're just going to pass through a secure community...
I'd be very confused.
Is a little naive.
But here's the thing. If it is a thing where it's gated on both sides, then you've got to think, if you're able to get in one side, you can get out the other. Like, you don't need a clicker to get out of these communities.
Well, apparently you did, because we found out there is a code to get out.
Yeah, well...
Do you remember what that code was?
504?
It was, indeed. So... Anyway, so the girl lets them in, and they're in, and they're trying to find their way out, and the road dead ends at a construction site saying, "Hey, future site of Creek View Church."
Super mega ginormous church.
So at this point, they're like, well, crap, we need to turn back around. No kidding. And they're like, how do we get out? We need someone to help us get out. So they approach a house, because they see that woman's red sports car in front. They're like, okay, well, she knows us. Oh, they also lied to her at the time, saying a friend's expecting us. So they had that going against them approaching the house. But anyway, they get to the house, and they hear a bunch of yelling between this woman and this guy. And the guy basically throws her into the fireplace, where she hits her head and hits the ground and is bleeding all over.
Okay, well... First of all, now, what would you do pertaining to that lady? I would say, here's the thing. My GPS said to go through here. We're not sure why, but apparently this is a shortcut that gets us to where we're going. So we're not even getting out of our car. We just want to literally drive through to the other gate and leave.
Yeah, if they had been clear with what their intention was with her.
And she might have been able to say, she could have been able to say, well, you're not going to be able to get out without a code or something, or this is not the shortcut you think it is.
Yeah, and it's ironic because the guy who is basically the upstanding, rational guy here is the one that says, oh, a friend is expecting us. What would you do? Don't lie if you don't need to lie.
Yes.
Why? Don't do that.
Yeah, people lie sometimes for, like, no reason, when sometimes the truth is actually just the better answer.
Absolutely. So, yeah. And
we see this theme a lot in this movie.
Yeah. So, at this point, they've basically witnessed a murder, and they're like, oh my God, we got to start, got to get out of here, because this guy at this point has looked toward the door and seen that there's somebody there watching him. So, they start running through this community. When this guy sees them, we later learn his name is Jacob, and Jacob has a gun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say in this respect, this is the most Texas movie. Like, everyone has a gun.
I don't want to visit Texas.
I mean, they're not pulling it like they do there, especially not in a community like that.
Everyone there had a gun. Everyone there whipped it out really quickly. So what would you do if you were any of these three guys and you're walking up to this house for help and then, I don't know, you just kind of spontaneously witness what appears to be a murder?
You don't stand there slack-jawed after it happens. As soon as you see that, like, get away from the window. Don't be seen. Get the hell out of there and call the police.
There was a lot of windows. It was a fancy house with a lot of windows in the front and the door and everything like that. So what would you do? Would you do what they did and just kind of running away through the community, basically, and leaving their car parked where outside of the house, because that's where they got out of the car to knock on the door?
Yeah, why are you leaving your car?
So they were running, obviously trying to get away from him, but also, too, knowing that they couldn't get out with the car. So, I mean, on one hand, it kind of makes sense, but on the other hand, a car is evidence. All anyone needs to do is be like, hey, there's a car here, and, you know, then they can eventually figure out who you are based on the car. But one of the characters actually borrowed that car from the dealership where he works. So I guess Evan had taken that car out for a spin.
Like, I would have just backed around to the gate I came in, because you know that that's a way in and out for sure. Like, it doesn't dead end into a church. And
just loiter,
I mean,
waiting for someone to leave
Yeah.
while the murderer's tracking you down.
Well, maybe he is. Like, maybe you have to.
He was
maybe
coming
you
at him for a gun.
Maybe you have to lose him, because if you're in the car, like, you could probably find a way to lose him and then get to that gate.
So this
And
community,
you don't even have to loiter by the gate. You can loiter in a place where you see other cars, and you just wait for another car that's leaving or even coming in, and you just
a guy with a
haul ass out of
gun
there.
is now chasing you. I don't know how patient I would be waiting for someone to come or leave through a gate.
Well, I'm sure as hell not going to go on foot when I can be in a car.
Okay. So this community has somewhat of a Stepford Wives vibe at first. Like, everyone is just there and acting kind of strange, because when these guys are hiding, this young boy, probably like 13 or something, comes out and be like, what are you doing in my yard? And they're like, shh, be quiet, be quiet. And then the little boy has his dad comes out and says, you know, they wouldn't say why they're here. And then the little boy pulls a gun. So I'm like, okay, so it was having sort of like, okay, what's up in this little community kind of feeling here.
Here's the thing. It's Texas. You basically have to assume everyone has a gun or access to that gun. If he's asking you why are you there, just explain.
Okay, but this is the crux of the problem throughout this film, is because they do explain. And it turns out the guy that they saw throw this woman against the fireplace until she fell to the ground all bloody is actually a pastor. He is Pastor Jacob, and he is the one who formed this community on the mountain and is the leader of this gated community. So even when they finally find someone and tell them what's going on, he's like, yeah, no, you're lying. Jacob is our leader. And that's the problem that these three young men have throughout this film, is telling people, and then these people will be like, oh no, Jacob, we love Jacob, we protect Jacob. They're here, which almost felt like a Body Snatchers kind of a thing. I don't know if you remember the Body Snatchers film, but basically they tell someone like, here, and then everyone would swarm.
Well, okay, so you don't know who the guy is at first. And when you get to the gruff old guy with cars and...
Christopher.
Yeah.
Christopher is one of the neighbors where they hide in his garage, and then he comes out, pulls a gun, because everyone there pulls a gun.
I mean, you've at that point, you've got to figure out real fast. Like, as soon as they said who it was...
As soon as they told Christopher.
Christopher completely turned on him.
Yeah.
So you have to believe at this point that in something in this community, there's a likely chance that this could happen. So I'm not
likely chance that what could happen?
That somebody could turn on you. So I'm not mentioning who the person is anymore. I'm just saying I witnessed a murder. It's at one of those houses down there. I can't remember. I can take the cop to the right one once they get here.
Well, and that's another unfortunate part here, is basically the cop is one that's exclusively hired for this community. So they're also somewhat beholden to Jacob. So these three young men are trying to get the heck out of here, but also realizing that they have not only witnessed a murder, but they have witnessed a murder by someone who is the leader of this community, and chances are getting slimmer and slimmer that something isn't going to happen to them. They are losing the ability to handle the narrative, and that someone could say, oh, these 3 young men killed this woman.
Yeah.
So what would you do if... So initially, the gentleman you're talking about, Christopher, he sees him in the garage, he pulls the gun, and then they actually wind up kind of talking about themselves and getting friendly until they mentioned that, oh, the house we saw and the guy we saw lived up here. And he was like, oh, that's Jacob. And then that's when Christopher turns on them. So, and then they start running again. So what would you do if you were those guys when you realize, like, wow, we're screwed here, because what we saw here wasn't just a murder. It was a murder by someone here that is very well loved and protected.
I mean, I pretty much said what I would just do. I would still try to find some, I mean, I would have gotten in my car where I had my phone.
Okay, so you
could have called 911.
So you're still going back to, I'm hanging out by the front gate.
But if, well, no, I mean, if at that point you don't have your car and you don't have phones that work, you kind of need to get a hold of a phone from someone. I'm just not being specific as to which house it was. I would just say it's one of those down at the end. I'm not from around here, so I don't remember. But I know I could take a police officer to it.
But ultimately, it doesn't matter if you do that. They're going to realize it's Jacob's and then saying, you know, what are you boys up to? Well, because they're going to go to the house you're telling them.
No, you're not going to tell. Oh, you mean the police?
Yeah.
Okay, well then I mean, that's what I would do. If the police is crooked and in his hands, then
well, I don't know that
there's nothing you can do about that.
They've bought into Jacob's mission of, we have a town up on the hill that is sacred and moved from the rest of the evils of society. And what? Someone said something negative about Jacob? Oh, that would never happen. Jacob is happily married, and he has all kinds of visions for this. So that was the twist here, is we learned that woman actually wasn't Jacob's wife, probably some prostitute that he invited up, or someone he was having an affair with.
Yeah, I think they mentioned she was a parishioner.
Yeah.
So I mean, and back to the other point, if you get to the cop before Jacob does, then he's going to take your report like it's a report. And until you drive up to the actual house, and having not heard anything from Jacob, you can actually, like, tell him exactly what you saw.
Well, as you mentioned, though, their phones either weren't working or they didn't have them with them. So they couldn't. And they were relying on person-to-person interactions with people because either their phones were dead or they were back in the car. So they could not call the cops, and they desperately wanted to call the cops.
Well, that's what I'm saying. My goal would be to find a phone I could use to call the cops.
Yeah, so what would you do? Maybe get back to the car and get a phone.
Yeah.
So this quickly escalates as they try to find someone in this community that will help them, and everyone keeps turning on them. And ultimately, Jacob gets the sheriff to bring one of the young men to them, Derek, and pretty much says, this is my vision. I want it to happen. You're confused, basically, about what you saw, right?
So this is also where we realized is there racism? Of course there's racism. Yeah. It's very clear. But it's not purely racism, because the one that...
there's a black woman that ends up getting involved, but she turns on them too.
Yes, exactly. That's my point, is that it's not purely a racism thing. It's a Jacob thing.
Well, it's also, they refer to these young men, they're perfectly fine young men, as inner city boys. So there's...
Oh, that's definitely racism.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely discrimination going on there.
Oh, yeah, I mean, 100%. I'm not for a second saying that discrimination doesn't play a role. It plays a huge role.
But it was strange to see the black woman in the community, because you didn't expect that. You thought that maybe these were, an all-white community.
Man, I would like to hope that in 2026 or even 2024, when this was filmed, that people wouldn't have that horrible of a response. I mean, they were mostly reasonably well dressed, especially after the one guy got rid of his hoodie.
Yeah, and that was, further evidence of the realities of being a young black man in America. Is when they were initially approaching the house where they unfortunately witnessed the murder, Derek, who is lives in a nice upscale neighborhood, is very cognizant of how he's dressed. And even though he doesn't say it, you realize that he's thinking, if I show up with a hoodie, someone's likely to get bent out of shape because, that's sadly a freaking thing in America. Yeah. So he ditches the hoodie, so he's just wearing a white T-shirt.
Yeah, this dude was trying to be a lawyer, so you've got to think he's got a decent head on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Sure, you're shedding the hoodie. That said, get your freaking wallet out of it first.
Yeah, he does put it.
That's just
throws
dumb.
it in the bushes, but it has his wallet.
And that's the thing. I feel like there were just a number of actions in this movie that were taken that feel out of sync with who those characters were.
Well, and, when we think about the hoodie, and, obviously that is a reference back to Trayvon Martin, who was murdered when he was out and he was wearing a hoodie. And those are the things where I started off the film like, I can't begin to imagine the challenges of being a young black man in our country, because those are the feelings they have to have and the things they have to think about is my very benign apparel going to be something that someone feels threatened by, and am I going to lose my life? And even though these characters made some good decisions and some bad decisions, it really was a reminder that the experience you and I have in our country is and will likely be very different than those three boys.
So that said, I will tell you, if I'm ever in a situation where I'm in someplace unfamiliar and somebody's pulled a gun on me, even as a white guy, I'm saying I am throwing my arms up and out as far from my body as I possibly can and saying, come search me. You'll see I have nothing on me.
Yeah, you don't want to do anything that someone could misinterpret. So,
because that's the thing, you can be right and dead.
Oh, absolutely. So let's jump back to when Derek is delivered to Pastor Jacob's house, because the sheriff has been instructed to bring Derek there. And Jacob shares his vision with him, and then not only basically tries to coerce him into saying he was confused, but then also bribing him, saying, I'm building something special here. This church is going to host 10,000 people. You're interested in law, going to law school? We might need a lawyer.
And we will pick up this discussion on the other side of the break from a word from our sponsor.
Overwhelmed by the technical side of podcasting? Duncast makes creating a professional-sounding podcast incredibly simple.
I was terrified of the technical side of podcasting. Duncast made it so simple that I launched my first episode in under 30 minutes.
Just record, and our patent-pending AI tools handle the rest, giving you studio-quality sound at a fraction of the time and cost. We also distribute your show to all major platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so all you have to worry about is being the creator.
If you want it done fast, use Duncast. Visit Duncast.com to start your free, no credit card required trial today.
And we are back, and remind everyone where we were.
We were talking about Derek being, number one, coerced into saying he was kind of confused about what he saw, but then also being bribed with, hey, our community is growing and we're going to need a lawyer. So, hey, why don't you be our lawyer?
You know what? This is
it's a big ethical dilemma for someone.
No, it's not.
Well,
not even a little bit. We've discussed this theme on the show many times. When you're in a situation that you know can be life-threatening, you do and say what you need to do and say and agree to in the moment to keep it from being life-threatening. You know what, sir? That actually sounds like a tremendous opportunity, and I would be privileged to be able to possibly serve you guys in that way. Like, play along.
Yeah, you're right. We have talked about when people have been abducted or prisoners against their will, and that you say or do to whatever you need to your captor to appease them.
Yeah, so, it doesn't matter if you're lying or not.
Yeah. What I didn't mean it was an ethical dilemma in the fact that, what do I do? This sounds like a really good offer. But just being put in the situation of he thought he was going to go to this guy's house and point out to the sheriff, like, here's the dead lady, who turns out she's injured. We learn that later she's injured and not really dead. But the whole unexpected position he's been in now where he's on the defense with this pastor. So ultimately, the sheriff has to go. And the pastor says, leave Derek with me. Yeah?
I just want to mention, when they come into the house and they see that everything is cleaned up,
yeah.
What I'm doing at that point is I'm saying, officer, call a detective, have them come down with a UV light.
Yeah, that would be a good
Because when you get a UV light on this, you're going to see that there is blood.
Yeah.
On that corner.
Absolutely.
Or having been.
Yeah, because Jacob cleaned it up, but obviously not much time has passed, so quite possibly he did a very bad job. I think that's a great what would you do. The other what would you do, which I think was smart of Derek, is after this offer is made, after Jacob thinks he's resolved this problem with this problem kid, the sheriff, when he starts to leave, and the pastor says, oh, Derek's going to hang out here with me, and Derek says, arrest me. And that's really, like, I was trespassing, arrest me. And I can understand how Derek thought that was the best move to ensure his safety, opposed to being left with Jacob, who we know kills people.
100%.
So what would you do? Exactly what Derek did.
Like, you have to believe that while the cop might be prejudiced against you, that he's not going to kill you if you are fully cooperating.
Yeah, I would agree. So ultimately,
but unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way. You do need someone to press charges for someone to get arrested.
Well, and the entire community was complaining about these men who were running around in the community. And ultimately, more chaos ensues. Jacob has stashed the body of the woman in the car that the young man arrived in. And ultimately, more people get killed. Their initial Christopher, who was nice to him and turned them in, gets killed. Jacob is willing to take out anyone and everyone to protect this vision of his 10,000 person church.
Well, Christopher applies logic.
Yeah, he figures out that there's something not right here.
Yeah, and especially once he saw who the person was.
The woman.
Yeah, he was like, hang on. She lives, I don't remember where it was. I know it was another one of those northern Dallas communities. So she doesn't live here. Why would these three boys, who also don't live here, have her here? Yeah. Now, when we know that you do know who she is. Right. Like, he actually eventually was able to get past his biases when he determined that the kids were telling the truth.
Christopher.
And was able to use critical thinking. Yeah. And that got him killed.
Yep. Yeah. So what would you do at that point where you are any one of these three young men and you realize now that this body is in the car, you are implicated here, a man who came to your defense now, who realizes what's happening, has now been shot, and Jacob has a gun. And at this point, you have every right to believe that he is going to take you out to shut you up.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
do you grab a gun in self-defense? Do you shoot anybody? Do you try and get in the car and get out of there? What do you do?
If I could grab that gun. So for one, you want all three of you split up. Preferably as far from each other as possible, because he can't be watching everyone all at the same time.
Oh, that's a good strategy.
That's number one. If I'm able to get the gun and I can point it at this guy's, like, lower leg, like near the foot area or something like that.
Oh, to disable someone from chasing you? That's smart.
I mean,
I never really thought about being strategic if I had to shoot someone, where I would shoot them.
I mean, if I've got the ability, because he's distracted with other people, to actually direct a shot, I'm going to try to shoot him in a place that is just going to massively distract him to the point that me or one of the other two can then go over there and get his gun. Because that's all you have to do. Like, the guys know.
But you still have a gun in your hand. It doesn't matter if your foot has been taken out. You still have a gun in your hand. You can still use it to shoot somebody.
Yes, you can. But again, we've already split into three different places. And he's writhing in pain because he's been shot. You bum rush the guy, knock the gun out of his hand, and then pick it up. Because then he's no threat. If you don't have a gun, you're not a threat.
So our next what would you do is ultimately one of the guys hits Jacob. He runs off into the dark, and they are left with 2 dead bodies, the sheriff and Christopher, and Jacob is in the wind, and they have this woman in the car who they now realize isn't dead. She has a pulse. So what would you do at that point if you were any of these 3 guys? What they ultimately do is they take her to the hospital. What would you do?
I take her to the hospital.
Yeah, because she's the only one who can even remotely corroborate anything, because the guy who had the suspicions is dead, the sheriff's dead. But if she could say, yeah, I was at his house and yeah, we had this fight, that's your best bet for any sort of vindication from this.
Yeah, 1,000,000% I'm saying hospital. So then they go home and their moms are there.
Well, mom and sister. It was
mom and sister?
Yeah, it was Derek's house.
And then we notice as they come in that Jacob is also there.
Yeah, after grabbing a big wad of money at his house and shoving it in a bag. And he wants to know where the woman is, because obviously he needs to take her out because she can implicate him.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you do when you're Derek at that point? Because he has a gun pointed at your mom and your sister. And he's saying, tell me where she is.
I tell him exactly where she is.
Would you tell him the real answer?
Yes, I would give him the real hospital. Absolutely 1,000,000%. And there's a reason.
Okay. Because then you can call the cops and say he's on his way?
Ding, ding, ding.
Ah.
Besides, it's not like it's just easy to go knock someone off in a hospital.
Are you kidding me? Movies and TV shows have people killing people in hospitals all the time. You just hold a tube, break the air.
Well, yeah, but if you get to them, you're barging into an type place where normally there's locked doors. You're not going to be able to just easily find the person without going through a whole bunch of people, and then you're screwed anyway if you try to knock her off in that environment, because 1,000,000 people will see you.
Well, you can also say, I'm her pastor, I'm her priest, I want to give her last rites, or I want to bless her, or whatever. He has a perfect, legitimate reason to want to
and that's
see
exactly why you call the hospital as soon as he's gone.
That's actually not a bad strategy.
You call the hospital, and you call the hospital and you tell them that there is a man with a gun named blah, 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 this description, who is looking to knock off this patient who came in because she's a witness in a crime involving him.
That is a good idea.
I need you to know that is happening, and I highly recommend that you get police presence there as soon as possible.
Yeah, I would support that.
Because then you give him the right hospital, because you know he's going to go there.
Right. Yeah.
So the police could literally just be waiting on him.
I'll buy that. So ultimately, Jacob is caught. The boys find a law enforcement sheriff who intervenes on their behalf, and Jacob is shot when he tries to shoot an officer, and they have detectives that meet with them. But they have been through a lot. What would you... Oh, okay. One note on the production here that just drove me crazy. So Jacob is there holding up the mom and the sister, and it's night and it's dark. And then when they take him out to the ambulance, it's bright as day.
Yeah. That one got me too.
No. If you're telling me the ambulance took hours to get there? Because characters had been shot in that altercation with Jacob.
I mean, maybe it's 4:30 in the morning, 5 in the morning at that point.
Yeah.
And
it was like noon kind of daylight. But neither here nor there, but that is something I know. So what do? You were just trying to go to a party.
What do I do?
Yeah, that was your night. How do you begin to process that?
I'm probably not wanting to go to another party anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm not going to veer from the path and take a detour. That's for sure.
Also, there is one last what would you do?
Okay.
That got me big time at the end. And when I say the end, I mean the very end. When they come up to Derek.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, these officers have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
And he says, I think I'm going to get my lawyer first.
Right.
No.
No?
No.
Oh, because implying that you're guilty or have something to hide?
Here's what you do.
Okay.
Make sure they at least get the first question out so that you know exactly where they're trying to go with all of this. And if you If you are telling the truth about everything and it's not something that implicates you in any way, answer the question. Now, as soon as you get to a question that could potentially be harmful to you, though I can't honestly see how there would be one, given the fact that they were completely the victims here. But let's say you do come, then you say, I need my lawyer.
I think at that point, after everything they've been through in the prior 8 to 10 hours, is they rapidly learned not to trust anybody because they just didn't know what they were going to get, and they didn't know where people's allegiance was. And I think that was likely a result of just going through that evening and not knowing who to trust.
I mean, you're back at home in Highland Park. Like, I'm not concerned, especially, like I said, I lived in Dallas for a few years, and Highland Park, there's a lot of money in Highland Park. So if you're there and you're a resident, like your race isn't going to matter. They're going to treat you very well until they have a reason not to. But yeah, for sure. I'm just noting that as long as nothing can implicate you and you're not saying anything false or anything like that, though mind you, you've proven throughout the movie that you are very capable of lying on the spot, sometimes for no reason. Just talk to them. But if it gets to a hard question, you always, and that is one thing to note, if you're ever in police custody for whatever reason, you can answer questions as long as they're safe. And the second they ask you something that could be even remotely harmful to you, then you say, I'd like my lawyer to continue.
See, and I think that's where it gets dicey, is a lot of people don't know where that line is. They don't know what might be incriminating. They don't know what might be safe. I think lots of times people just can't draw that line for themselves and make that distinction.
Yeah, but the guy's a lawyer, or he wasn't a lawyer, but he
wants to be a lawyer.
He wants to be a lawyer. So you've got that brain. You've got that pretty cold analytical brain.
He does, yes, for the sake of the film, yeah. But when you're just talking about anyone in custody, I don't know if the average person can manage that for themselves. Because that's where you get into all kinds of trouble of people talking without lawyers, and then they said this, and it either got misconstrued or it was something that really was incriminating. So
yeah, but here's the other thing too to remember. It is my understanding of the legal system that if you are merely a suspect in like anything and they're just questioning you, now I could be absolutely wrong. And matter of fact, I'm going to ask the intern, if you are being brought in for questioning, are you allowed to get a public defender to assist you at that point, or do you have to wait until court?
You have the right to an attorney during questioning, and if you cannot afford one, a public defender must be provided before the interrogation can proceed. You do not have to wait until your court date to exercise this right.
So, I honestly don't know. I think you would have to hire your own lawyer, and if you do, that's money.
Okay. All right. Well, this was a film, and the main character, Derek, was actually Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son, so spreading that Gooding name to another film, and it was nice to see James Van Der Beek in one final role.
Yeah, it's sad that was his last episode. He was my doppelganger. You know that, right?
So you said.
Well, so I was told when I was like 19 or 20. Definitely not today.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.